They called it the House of Poison long before history dared to write it down. In the corridors of the French royal court, where silk dresses whispered against marble floors and chandeliers glowed like captive stars, death was said to move silently, disguised as perfume, cosmetics, or a courteous smile. At the center of those rumors stood one woman, widowed queen, mother of kings, survivor of a hostile world that despised her foreign blood. This is the story behind why Catherine de Medici's court was called the House of Poison. And if you're drawn to the shadows of history, to the moments where power and fear intertwine, take a second to like this video and subscribe. These stories endure only because we continue to tell them. Catherine de Medici arrived in France as a teenage bride, orphaned and politically expendable, a Florentine noblewoman sent into a court that never truly accepted her. She married Henry, Duke of Orleans, who would later become King Henry II. But from the beginning, she was overshadowed. Henry's heart belonged to Diane de Poitiers, older, elegant, and powerful. Catherine learned early that love had little value in royal life. Survival, however, meant everything. The French court was a place where alliances shifted overnight, where a careless word could destroy a family, and where death was often disguised as fate. When Henry II died suddenly in 1559 after a jousting accident, Catherine's life changed forever. A splinter from a lance pierced the king's eye, lodging deep within his skull. For days, physicians probed the wound with primitive tools as the smell of infection filled the room. Catherine watched her husband slowly die, powerless, surrounded by men who claimed authority over his broken body. With his final breath, the fragile balance of the court collapsed. Catherine was no longer merely a queen consort. She became the mother of kings, and with that role came a ruthless necessity to protect her children at any cost. France in the mid-16th century was a nation tearing itself apart. Religious tensions between Catholics and Protestants simmered like an open wound, erupting into violence that stained streets with blood. Noble families armed themselves, cities fortified their gates, and sermons turned into calls for vengeance. Catherine stood at the center of this chaos, attempting to govern through her sons, who ascended the throne one after another, each too young, too weak, or too sickly to rule alone. Power, in practice, rested in her hands, and power, in such a climate, demanded secrecy. Whispers began almost immediately. People spoke of poisons crafted in hidden rooms, of Italian alchemists and apothecaries summoned under cover of darkness. The Medici name already carried a dark reputation, tied to intrigue, banking, and alleged assassination back in Florence. Catherine's enemies were quick to seize upon it. Any sudden death, any unexplained illness, was attributed to her invisible hand. A nobleman collapses after a banquet. A rival courtier wastes away, vomiting and feverish. A political obstacle dies quietly in his bed. The rumors spread faster than the truth ever could. Poison, in the 16th century, was a weapon uniquely suited to the court. Unlike the executioner's axe or the guillotine, which would come later, poison left no spectacle. It worked in silence. Symptoms could mimic natural illness: cramps, weakness, internal bleeding, madness. Arsenic, known as inheritance powder, was tasteless and easy to conceal. Belladonna, mercury, and various plant toxins were common knowledge among apothecaries. In a world without modern forensic science, suspicion replaced proof, and fear filled the gaps. Catherine herself was fascinated by science and medicine, a trait inherited from her Florentine upbringing. She collected books on herbal remedies and employed skilled physicians. To her supporters, this was evidence of intellect and care. To her enemies, it was confirmation of something darker. They claimed she maintained a secret laboratory, where mixtures were tested on animals, or worse, on prisoners. Some legends went even further, suggesting she experimented with poisons on the poor, watching their suffering to perfect her craft. Historians today treat these claims with caution, recognizing how easily misogyny and xenophobia could turn curiosity into criminal myth. It would be dishonest to paint Catherine as innocent of all cruelty. She was a woman shaped by constant threat. Every one of her children was a target. Every decision she made risked igniting civil war. In such an environment, mercy could be fatal. Catherine relied on informants, spies, and quiet interventions. She understood that public executions created martyrs, while silent deaths removed problems without rallying opposition. Whether she personally ordered poisonings remains debated, but she presided over a system where fear was an accepted instrument of control. The court itself became a stage for paranoia. Banquets, once symbols of unity, turned into minefields. Guests watched each other carefully as servants poured wine and presented dishes. Some nobles brought personal tasters. Others avoided certain foods altogether. Perfumed gloves, a fashionable accessory of the era, were rumored to be soaked in toxins that entered the body through the skin. Even love letters and books were suspected, their pages dusted with deadly powders. The air of elegance was thick with dread. One of the most persistent legends surrounding Catherine involves her alleged flying squadron, a group of young women, beautiful and intelligent, sent to charm powerful men and extract secrets. According to rumor, these women were also trained in poisoning, their kisses as dangerous as their smiles. While modern historians question the extent of this organized seduction, there is no doubt that Catherine used social manipulation skillfully. She understood desire, ambition, and vanity, and she used them as tools in her political arsenal. As the wars of religion escalated, the violence Catherine witnessed was no longer subtle. Massacres erupted across France, most infamously the St. Bartholomew's Day massacre in 1572. Parisian streets ran red with blood as thousands of Protestants were slaughtered. Beds hung, doors were broken down, bodies were thrown into the Seine. Catherine's role in these events remains one of the most controversial aspects of her legacy. Some contemporaries accused her of orchestrating the killings. Others argue she lost control of forces she had tried to restrain. What is certain is that the scale of suffering shattered any remaining illusion of a gentle court. In the aftermath, the label House of Poison hardened into something more than gossip. It became a symbol. Catherine's court was seen as a place where death could come at any moment, where smiles concealed knives, and where survival depended on constant vigilance. Foreign ambassadors reported home with thinly veiled fear, describing an atmosphere heavy with suspicion. Even Catherine's allies sometimes wondered how close they stood to danger. Yet Catherine herself was no immortal mastermind. Age weighed on her. She outlived her husband and several of her children. She buried sons and watched crowns pass like cursed objects from one fragile head to another. The woman accused of dealing death so freely was intimately familiar with loss. Her letters reveal exhaustion, anxiety, and grief. She complained of illness, of loneliness, of the crushing responsibility she could never escape. Power had preserved her, but it had also consumed her. When Catherine de Medici died in 1589, there was no dramatic poisoning, no sudden collapse at a feast. She succumbed to natural illness, her body failing after decades of strain. Yet even in death, suspicion lingered. Some claimed she feared being poisoned herself and avoided certain foods to the end. Others whispered that fate had simply chosen a quieter exit for a woman so associated with silent killing. In the centuries that followed, Catherine's image hardened into legend. Writers and playwrights portrayed her as a serpent in silk, a foreign which manipulating kings and murdering rivals with a smile. Paintings emphasized her dark clothing, her watchful eyes, her severe posture. Popular culture transformed her into a symbol of female cruelty and intrigue, often ignoring the brutal realities of the world she navigated. The House of Poison became shorthand for everything terrifying about unchecked power behind palace walls. Modern historians paint a more complex portrait. They acknowledge Catherine's ruthlessness, but also her pragmatism. They see a woman operating within a system that offered her little mercy and no room for failure. Poison, real or imagined, became a narrative because it captured the fear of a society unraveling. It was easier to blame a single woman than to confront the deeper fractures tearing France apart. Still, the stories persist because they resonate with something timeless: the fear that power prefers silence. But the most dangerous violence is the kind we do not see. That suffering does not always announce itself with drums and banners, but with a tightening chest, a sudden weakness, a life slipping away unnoticed. When we speak of why Catherine de Medici's court was called the House of Poison, we are not only talking about toxins and treachery. We are confronting the cost of survival in a world built on suspicion. We are asking how far a person can be pushed before morality becomes a luxury they can no longer afford. Catherine's legacy forces us to sit with that discomfort, to recognize that history is rarely divided into heroes and villains. In the end, the House of Poison was as much a state of mind as a physical place. It was born from fear, fed by rumor, and sustained by a society desperate to explain its own violence. And as long as power continues to operate behind closed doors, as long as ambition and insecurity walk hand in hand, the echoes of that poison court will never truly fade.